We are live. What's up, crew? Welcome back to the Soapbox. I know I'm a little late on this one, about a week and a half. Sorry about that. Want to just dive in here, and actually, it's one of my favorite topics to talk about. Is not necessarily topics, but it's when I get a email question from someone who's been either following me or listening, or just has asked me a question. And I think it's always valid, because oftentimes when you get a question from someone that you might not know, but you're somehow acquainted, there's probably a lot of other people out there that have those questions or looking for that type of answer. So let's do it. This is my way of getting a question at a seminar and then answering from one person and answering to the whole group, because I think that this can add value. So the question was phrased relatively simply. It's like, hey, here's the scenario. I'm an athlete, and I found CrossFit, loved it, and I really wanted to compete, started competed on a team at some level, regional, whatever it might be. And the level at which you compete doesn't really matter. It's that the goal was there, and that we all have these goals. So I had this goal to compete, and I wanted to, and I was pushing, I was training hard, I was dedicating a lot of time, money, and energy, and sacrifices to training. And then at some point that changed, right? And at some point that my goal changed, whether the impetus, that kind of matters a little bit, but whatever that might be, where you have your family life changes, your work life changes, the game scenario changes, right? And how you can qualify individual and teams, whatever it is, right? And so now you're kind of left with, all right, now what? And then it kind of goes on. It's like, all right, well, do I keep training the way I was? What do I change? What do I tweak? Not only from a training perspective, but from a mindset perspective. What am I looking to do? And then from a psychological perspective, how do I find purpose? How do I become okay with a change in the goals, therefore possibly change in performance, so on and so forth. And I think this question is so important, and it's very relevant, to me, because right now I'm not competing. I'm not, competing as an individual at the CrossFit Games, or really looking to be on a team, at least in next year. I haven't thought about it today. And so I'll answer this question with my journey, and then some insights from the struggles that I've had. And then also overlaying that onto anyone, right? So for me, I competed in the CrossFit Games in some way, shape, or form for a decade, pretty much. And for me, my journey was, and I think your journey is important too, of like how you, enter into it. For me, it was very unique, because I found CrossFit to compete, and then competed within 1 year of me of finding CrossFit. Now, in 2009 to 10, you could do that. I don't think you're going to see that anymore. So not that relatable of a story, but for me, the reason why that's important is because I didn't know CrossFit without competing. Now, my life evolved around that as I progressed and as I grew. I became a CrossFit trainer, a CrossFit coach. I started running Reebok CrossFit One. I started owning facilities. I worked for CrossFit headquarters. All of these things happened around that, but I was always competing while that was also happening. And that was important. It's an important topic, because it was easy for me to drive so much worth and identity from that. But also, part of me always knew that at some point this could come to an end, whether an abrupt end or, some sort of just fading off, just, as life happens. And so I was fortunate enough, whether I knew it or not, whether it was super conscious or not, to start to lay other pieces of framework. And the reason why I say this is because I think the number one thing we need to understand is, from an emotional and psychological perspective, we can't derive our entire worth as an athlete, certainly within this world of CrossFit. And the reason why is because you have a platform, whether it is, whether it's in your gym, your local community, or the global scale, if you're a games athlete, and you have the opportunity to diversify what and how you are representing. and what you are representing from yourself. So for me, that was important because as I, have transitioned focusing from competing 100% to other things, I've been able to transition those to be my focus: coaching, programming, education, mentorship. Those are things that, but I created that as I was going, and I created an opportunity to do that, and that was something I did. You can do all sorts of things, so. Was really important because I think that if you don't have anything and you stop competing tomorrow, then what are you going to do? And I think you see this a lot, certainly at the regional level, where athletes sacrifice a lot, but they don't even make it to the global scale once. But they've sacrificed so much, and in that sacrifice, which may have been imperative for them to get where they got to, they also sacrificed other things: work, friendships, also identity, but also from their opportunities to lay the framework. So part of this is, maybe speaking not to those that might need to hear this right now. What I mean by if you're already on the other side of it, it might be a little late, but, you can't be a one-trick pony, and I know, and what I mean by that is look at the best athletes in the world. They're some of the best business women and men out there, and they have in many business opportunities and endeavors, and you look at all different athletes, they all have different things that they've done. So, and I think that's really important because it's easy to get clouded with, I need to be all in, right? Because this notion of 100% in all the time. But yes, that's important from an athletic perspective. But I don't think that means that you have to fully sacrifice other opportunities, or at least start to put irons in the fire. So emotionally, mentally, you need to really start to lay that framework early. Now, and this is something that I still struggle with. This is all right, well, let's get down to the nitty gritty when it comes to training, because what do you do? All right, well, I think there's a few things, and I think there are two types of athletes out there: athletes that truly love training, and athletes that love competing. I don't know if that's right. I don't know if there's other blocks, but those are going to be my two stereotypes, right? And I love to train. I love working out. I love the feeling. I love the pain. I love the challenge, the difficulty, the failure, the triumph, all of those things I love. And so finding a balance between am I training all of the day, all the time, whatever it might be. And I really struggled with this in the beginning. I didn't really struggle. I just didn't know what to do. What I meant by that is well, do I work out now? What, and because my days, and it was nice because before it was, all right, I always had to do this. So I'm always, your days revolved around training. When are you going to get session 1, 2, 3, 4, and whatever it might be? I was fortunate that I had, I started to work at, our office moved to Reebok CrossFit One in the city. So commute went up. My life changed a little bit to become way more calculated. When I was working out, it couldn't just be hey, let's get this other session in now. I had to be way more focused and scheduled because of my commute and all those other things. And that really helped me whittle down, all right, and this was in my last year competing, but then in that transition phase, it helped me be more regimented. And I think that's going to be, schedule number, like rule number one is have a schedule for those athletes that are transitioning out of competing in any way, shape, or form. And if you love training, schedule in one session and then maybe another session too. And in traditional, non-COVID world, it's maybe one of those is always a class, and then another one would be your opportunity to do other stuff outside of class. I do think taking class is really, really important, and that's something that really should never be sacrificed or taken away. So I think that's something that is important. And then from there, how much and what to do following a program. I definitely think it's important. This is not a programming discussion, but I definitely think that there are some, it's all right, well, when you're not training for a competition, because there's a lot of things that you might have done that you would not have done normally, right? For me, it's like swimming. I love swimming. I'm not good at it. It's a great workout, but gosh, it's a huge time suck for me, right? Where like I have a gym at home, I work at a gym, so it makes my life logistically a lot easier. So if I don't have to go to the pool, it's great. So for me, maybe I'm not going to swim as much anymore. And that's my personal choice, not because of the fitness endeavor. I think it's great. If I had a pool in my backyard, I would be swimming all the time. But again, I doesn't fit into my logistics and life schedule. And again, dovetailing that, I have a kid. So and at the last 2 years, I haven't competed, a year and a half, 1 year, which also made it, from a time priority perspective. All right, so like for me now, working out first thing in the morning is important if I want to get 2 sessions in. So for me, I love working out. So I work out at 5 a.m. every morning. I do that really because I know if I want to get another session in, that's the only way I can do it. I have to get my first one in early, and then in the afternoon, I have to sneak one in. And it's got to be, and that's important. It's going to be quicker, whatever it is in the afternoon, because life's happening at that point. But I also like my uninterrupted fitness time, and that's in the morning. And no one's up. And that's one, because my life and priorities changed. With my family, with my work, with all of that, that started to become the focus. So I started to schedule my fitness around that. And so I think that's an important transition phase, is like, and then what does it look like? Like, my actual workouts look a little different. I'm more about efficiency now as opposed to anything else. And what I mean by that is, if I'm going to lift, I'm going to do it on the clock. I might do it with something else. I might get my heart rate up. I'm just not going to sit around and lift for 30 minutes. And it's not that lifting for 30 minutes is a bad thing. It's just something that I think I can get more bang for my buck. And I think that's what your fitness turns into, is bang for your buck. And you can get a lot done. You can be way above the average CrossFitter, way above that, person that just works out once a day, because that's something that, you have this built up level of capacity and volume and skill. Absolutely. So utilize that and leverage it. That's why we've created certain programs that, on the hand plan to do that, right? For me, it's like the dad sesh, things like that, to satisfy that itch and that need. So that's, from a transitional perspective, I think that's going to be really, really important. And then also, how do you compare? I think this is going to be really a hard thing for a lot of people. It is always still hard for me, is depending on the level of fitness you had prior, right? So like, if I was the fittest I was competing, but also, and what I mean by that is overall fitness. I was the strongest, the fittest, the fastest, all this stuff. Now I've lost some of that, right? I've had some injuries. I'm banged up a little bit, but for the most part, when I look at that, it's hard sometimes to say, man, like, can I walk up to that bar and clean and jerk 315 or snatch 225 easily? And the answer might be no. Like reassessing, all right, well, the past doesn't have to beat you up. It can motivate you, but it's easy to compare yourself with my old self, and I don't think that's easy, and I think that's hard. But what I try to do is I use it as motivation and inspiration. Is what I mean by that is, can I get to that with less volume? Can I sustain this level of fitness with not working out 5 or 6 times a day? It's almost a challenge, and the answer doesn't necessarily matter. It's that challenge in the moment to take that, man, I suck, I'm not fit enough, or you get into this sort of like workout dysmorphia type of cognitive issue, but you just flip the script a little bit and you turn it into, hey, this is where I am now, and I'm going to try to get to that in that session or whatever it is. And I think that's going to be really important going forward, because when you think about fitness over a lifetime, certainly for those that like competed, you've amassed an immense amount of fitness and capacity. Now it might go down, right? You might lower in certain areas. Like for me, I'm not a huge guy, and my lifts have always been a weakness of mine. So I used to lift a lot because it was always an area of weakness. So obviously I'm not lifting as much, so I might not be as strong in certain lifts. But so I think that it's important to let the emotions of I'm not good enough, I'm not where I should be, and you get a little depressed. I think it's okay to feel that, but it can't consume you and it can't direct action. You just feel it, let it in, and then flip the script. Where am I now? What am I doing? Let me get motivated by it. And remember, you're not comparing. It's and it's still so easy to compare against others. Again, as opposed to looking at what others are doing, be motivated by them, be inspired by them, as opposed to frustrated with where you're at today. I'm going to do that. That's why I work out in the morning with a couple buddies, couple X Games athletes, Craig Kenny and Paul Tremblay, because we're inspired by each other. Yeah, we beat each other all the time. We heckle each other, but it pushes us, but it's not something that it's. We're not looking to beat each other, but we're not looking to lose to one another, if that makes sense. And I think you got to find that, right? Now, I found that, and it's taken me a couple of years to really figure out what is that motivator. Now, there's also this piece in the back of my head is I always want to and I don't know if this is right or wrong, but it's how I feel. I always want to be the fittest I can be right now, given my goals and my parameters. What I mean by that is I don't want to be average. I don't want to just be good. I want to be better than everybody. I know that sounds bad, but what I mean is I still want to be able to compete and throw down if I have to. And I don't expect to be the best or the fittest in the world. That's not what I'm saying, but that's what I tell myself. And that's how I motivate myself. It's why I wake up at 4:30 every day. It's why I get a second session in the afternoon. It's why if I can choose between, I can watch TV or go work out, let me go work out. Because what are my priorities? I have family, I have, work, I have this, whatever it is, and then working out. I only have a few things, and you know what? I'm willing to sacrifice other things because of how important this fitness endeavor is to me. And one, because I love it. Two, because I'm competitive. And three is I feel like I have a responsibility to myself, but also others to maintain a level of fitness that is above average. I do feel that. And I truly believe that competitors will always have that. And if you have that, then find something and I love finding mini goals. I think this is another important thing. I ran the marathon and deadlifted 600 pounds, and I went and did the strongman competition and did max deadlifts at 315 in 2 minutes, and I was able to win that. Those are things that you have to find things that give you, but also all the while is always I'm going to keep training CrossFit. I'm not going to specialize. You got to give yourself a caveat. I might just, target a little more, but I'm not going to fully lose, my bread and butter. Finding those little things, but they don't consume your life. That's the thing. You can't let it consume your life if you don't want it to. Because for those of us that were competitors, it consumed our life, and now we've moved on. And again, the moving on isn't moving on to never competing again. It might be moving on from competing being your number one goal. But that doesn't mean you can't pivot and change if you want to make it. Again, if someone's like, hey, Austin, let's make a run for the CrossFit Games next year, I might say yes. Now, there's a lot of, but it's not just I have to weigh my other options and those other things, right? That monetary wise, family sacrifice, work sacrifice, and if those are going to be impacted, I might say no, because I'm not willing to sacrifice that. But I'll wake up earlier, stay up later, do those types of things. But yeah. So those are the things that I think about. And I hope that this stuff helps you start to process where you are. But being honest with yourself, feeling emotions, but also trusting that, remember, life, the only inevitable is change. But with change comes challenge, with pain and hurt. Change, it hurts because things are moving. Things are not once what they were. And again, once you're comfortable, now you're comfortable. So the minute change happens, you're uncomfortable. And so it's okay. I don't think it's a bad thing. I definitely think it's a hard thing, for sure. So dealing with that transition, I think is, the sports psychologists, you look at all the professional athletes out there, there's a lot to unpack. But if I were to give everyone a piece of advice, if they were starting competing now or wanting to, is don't set your whole life's worth on one thing. Diversify, and that's important. Diversify your investment in yourself and other things, so you are more than a one-trick pony. And the minute you do that, it will make it easier. It won't make it easy, it will make it easier. Right? So that's what I have for you. That's the soapbox. Hopefully this helps. Please shoot me questions that you guys have, and I will try to address them as honestly as personally, and hopefully overlay them, though my experiences, and maybe that can help you out. So guys, appreciate it. Appreciate you, and we'll see you next week.